Hello and welcome back to Compiler Programming. Over the last few videos I got quite annoyed about the way we ended up implementing overloading, and in particular it doesn't seem to be that useful for the values, even though it was a neat trick. But instead it's just we probably are gonna use it only for functions, and honestly even for functions it might not be just the right time to do it. I don't know. I will keep it for functions since we already have it implemented, but I will not keep it for the rest of the values. So we're essentially gonna undo most of the stuff that was done during the implementation of the overloading. So we get rid of value overload. We get rid of maybe get if single stuff, and then just going to be a bunch of stuff. Now, how do we deal with functions? And with functions, I think it's actually going to be easier if we deal with overload as a linked list. So in the function descriptor, we would just say that you can have something like next overload, and this will just be part of the function descriptor. And this is going to be obviously the same it was before. We will need to look for the value overload and just slowly go through everything and get rid of this stuff. So maybe get rid of single overload is not necessary anymore. This is not necessary. This is not necessary. Here I can just say A and B. Value overload pair. Yeah, I guess we also don't need that. What is happening here? So this is void value. Now it's going to be just void value. Void value pointer is this thing. Okay. Yeah, we don't really need that thing anymore. So this all goes away. What else do we have? Single value overload. We don't need this function. We will just replace this with this stuff. That's good. We don't need this stuff. Just a bunch of copy pasting here. Okay, value byte size. Well, that's basically now pretty straightforward. We will not need to have to go through all of the overloads because it's going to be always the same thing. And this is why actually only having function overloads is pretty nice, because functions always have the same descriptor size. So that's fine. We just say byte size is descriptor byte size of value descriptor and return this like so. Okay, register for descriptor, that is good. By the way, later on we probably will support 16 bytes and maybe even 32 when we get to SIMD stuff, but for now that's fine. I also realized that we don't always correctly deal with operand byte size. So that's something to think about in terms of API design. Like, could I make it such that this always happens correctly? I don't know. Okay. What's next? Helper value as function. Well, this is pretty straightforward. We just change from value overload to value. This returns a value. This is just a bunch of changes that are very similar to one another. Okay, we are done with this file, but there is a bunch more files where we need to deal with that. So this is no longer necessary. We don't need this overload list. We don't need, actually for this one we do, and the way we deal with this is size of S32 next next overload is gonna be size of S64, and that's it. This is way simpler than what we had before, even though linked lists are usually not the recommended structure in C because of like random access in memory. For stuff like overloads, I feel it's pretty fine because like how many overloads can your function have? 10, 100, even 200? That's perfectly fine to iterate through a link like a list like this, and if it becomes a problem, you can always turn it into a tree or something like that. Anyhow, let's just continue with this stuff. We can change this to be this and get rid of overload. What is happening here? Message overload. Now it's gonna be just message value. So we remove this stuff. We say message value here, and here we call this like this. Okay. This is gonna be value, and it's gonna be message value. So we don't need to have this thing. We don't need maybe get a single overload, which is good. Okay. And this is it with this file. I will now start building. We'll get a lot of errors, but I'm more interested in errors in the files where I've already been through. So namely this thing. So okay, here is one error where I forgot to do, but so far it looks like these three files are actually fine, which is good news, and we have a lot of problems in function.c, but that's okay, we can fix them. Okay, this returns a value, a value, a value, and that's all I needed to do. This is also like so. Okay, this is good. Now for the function, one tricky part is we will need to change how operands are stored for that to work, but we'll get to that in a moment. Right now, we just need to clear out the main stuff and make sure that we don't have any remnants of old things. Function get value overload. I don't think we need this anymore. Yeah, let's just not have this. So this is gonna be builder. So what was this doing? It was getting result. So it's basically builder result. I guess. Still not happy. Function, builder, result. So I guess it's like this. No, actually it should be directly. It's a pointer to the thing, so to do it like this. That's fine. Do it like so. Okay. This is value. We don't need this helper anymore. Okay. And we don't need this fix me, I guess. Function return. Yeah, there's always about return value. So go in header. Okay, more stuff. And this is just I thought doing this off video, but then I think it's important to show that developers are often wrong, and even people making series or tutorials or whatever, like sometimes you're just not sure what is the right way to deal with the situation, and you try something, doesn't work out, you're like, okay, well, I tried that, we'll try something else. It's okay if things fail, right? So we just take some time. It's not going to be the end of the world. It will take like 30-40 minutes to undo this. And I think it's really important to just, take the time and undo, because kind of not get stuck in this mindset is like, oh, okay, I invested already so much time into making that work, and now if I will try to, like, you know now we'll spend even more time undoing this stuff. It's just, such a waste. But especially if you're not sure something the right way to do, and it's like super annoying to you, that means that every time you're gonna be working on this code, it's just gonna be, this voice in your head saying, oh, like I don't like this is annoying, and I just don't want to do it. And what will eventually happen is you're gonna be very unhappy um, working on something and just stop doing that. And it's just not how you want to deal with this. You want to uh, take the time and make the work enjoyable. And this is important not just for kind of, your pet projects or some personal stuff. The same thing actually applies to work. Unless you have some really burning deadline that, has to be met for whatever reason. And I mean, okay, I understand. Like, I don't know. I worked in e-commerce most of my life, and Christmas and stuff and holidays. It's like, yeah, you have to deal with that. But apart from that, there are usually very few kind of hard deadlines, and it's often worth it to just, sit down and clean up the stuff that is makes everybody in the team annoyed, or even just you annoyed, if you can justify that it's going to bring overall better code, and just, just do it and see how you feel afterwards. Because usually after you're like, oh, okay, this is much better, like it's much smaller, it's whatever, and the way you feel definitely affects how you end up performing and how good is your code, right? So this is just something I learned over the years, and I thought I'd do it on stream to showcase that it's worth doing. And as you can see, like I can speak while doing all of this. That means that it's not like a very hard refactoring. Unfortunately, I don't really know of any tools that are really good supported here. There are some like structural refactoring tools that you can look for certain AST patterns and rewrite them with other ones, but they are a bit fiddly, and honestly, unless you have a code base that's like, you know, several million lines, then I found them just not worth it. Because as you go through the code, you also find you know, just notice things about it and see, okay, I actually, it's worth getting back here and rechecking if this is how I would do it, or, you know, or something like this. I don't know. Okay. This is here, this is here. Let's continue. With call function overload, this is the only function that actually will need to do stuff. Instead, we will need to change slightly how we deal with overloads anyway. So I'll just leave it. It's I will change it to value, but we'll see how that will look like in the end. I'm not sure. Okay. What is happening here? We don't need value overload. We need just value. Value here, and value here, and get rid of this stuff. Okay, that looks better, but still a bunch of. So this arg overload list, I believe we do not need anymore, because it will be just the list of values. Okay, here's a value, and okay, I will leave it as is, I guess, for now. So this is value star arg. We don't need overload, we don't need to copy it. Here we just say same value type. And we might actually need to deal with overloads here when we try to call, like when we try to pass a function pointer and that function pointer is overloaded, but this is a separate thing, I'd say. Okay. Let's remove this stuff. Here, like so. Okay, that is better. Yeah, this will need to change. This will also need to change. So I guess this is fine. In this file, we only are left with call stuff, which is exactly what we will need to change. And there are a bunch of problems here. So we just need to unwrap things as everywhere else. And probably it will be that. Okay, ensure memory. I think ensure memory is actually the function I did off video. And the way it works is it just checks if we have memory indirect operand, and if not, it just, creates one. Nothing really fancy here. Okay, that is good. We don't need to have this stuff. We don't need to have this. So we can call this raw value like this. This is no longer struct overload, but it is fine. We say struct value, then fix all the references. Like so. And more of the same. Was a bit overzealous there with deleting stuff. Okay, this all goes away. And wherever was overload, it becomes a value. Same as here. Becomes a value. Yeah. We don't need this because this is no longer result overload. This is result value. Okay, tag overload no longer exists. Well, sort of. It's now value tag value. That's okay. That's better. Make editor a bit bigger so I can start also fixing some of the alignment. What is this overload? I wonder. Move value. I guess it was value. Here it's like this. More of the same stuff. Yeah, so another thing with like those tools about automatic refactoring is usually you will end up with weird names because of course it doesn't know how to update them correctly. So that's also something to consider if you want to use stuff like this or not. Most of the time I definitely prefer to take the time and just do it. Okay, support size of, that's fine. This like this, like this. It's good. Reflection. And sometimes just going through the program makes you kind of appreciate how far have you come when compared to where you started. So there's quite a lot of stuff here, and it all works. So we do not support this polymorphic value style anymore. This is a test that we need to delete. And here we don't need that. We will just use index directly. We don't need temp overload as well. So yeah, this whole thing with overload value, it was definitely not a good idea, at least maybe not at the point in time where we are with this compiler, but it was a fun experiment. Okay, This is good. This is index. And we are getting close to be done. Okay, single overload value, undefined. Well, that's fine because we do not need it. Okay, overload count, overload list. So what we are left with is the function overload stuff. And this is something to think about. So the issue right now is, I think, that in general, the whole setup with the way we store a descriptor and operand on a value does not always match the reality in the program. And the way we can deal with this would be probably to either merge them together or to figure out a different way to encode where we are storing stuff. So right now, operand is very much attached to the idea of sort of the types of values that CPU is dealing with, but maybe it would be better if it was something else. I think, though, for this particular stuff, we'll just roll back how it was before, and next overload will become a value. Then in here we would have an issue, I think. Strangely that we do not. Yeah, actually, no, this is now correct. I wonder why it wasn't failing before. Well, maybe it's done in different paths, and as long as there are errors like this, it will not go further. So we'll see. Regardless, now we need to change this loop to something like, well, actually, this is fine. So we say while to call, and we do want to assert that there was at least one thing to call, like we don't want to end up silently failing when we basically passed an empty thing, a null here. And we just change this loop to be a standard loop over lists, which is you, at the end of the loop, you just say to call is to call next overload. And that is that. Next overload is not a member of value. You are correct. It is a member of this stuff. Okay. We don't need this because instead of overload, we're just using directly to call. Okay. Now we have another gigantic list of errors, but this is fine. This is something we can definitely deal with. Okay. So they are, I guess, inside macro expansion. First of all is this stuff. We definitely want to get rid of this maybe get stuff. This is good. Good. And good. Okay. I am over here. Let's find some more. So yeah, there is something wrong inside of the macro, and probably, yeah, there is this maybe get stuff, which needs to go away. Okay, making progress. Value is not a Remember, that's fine. So now we call this size of S32 instead of an overload. And here it should be descriptor function like so. Okay, this is good. We don't need this stuff. Okay, message overload undeclared identifier. Well, because that is now message value. And we are done. Okay, probably there will be one or two test failures, or even not. So we did this flawlessly, which is always great to see. I think that will be it for today. Tomorrow I will do something newer, have a few things in mind that might be quite neat to implement, and we will go like this, changing up new things with some refactoring that is always necessary. For now, I thank you very much for watching, and hopefully see you then.